So, you want to master spoken Mandarin? I mean, really master it? To the point where your speech is the gold standard. Well, there's one test that measures exactly that. The Putonghua Proficiency Test, or PSC. But how on earth do you prepare for it? In this explainer, we are going to break it all down and give you a clear, practical roadmap for success.
Here's how we're going to do it. First, we'll get into what the PSC actually is and who it's really for. Then, we'll decode the test format itself. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, how to master your prep with a solid study plan, how to tweak that plan for you, and we'll wrap up with the key things that matter most.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even think about how to prepare, we've got to be crystal clear on what the Putonghua Proficiency Test is. And trust me, it's probably not what you think, especially compared to other Chinese exams you might know.
At its core, the PSC is China's official standardized oral exam. It's run by the National Language and Writing Work Committee, and it has one single laser-focused goal: to measure how well you speak standard Mandarin. We're talking pinpoint accuracy and pronunciation, using standard words and perfect grammar.
This right here really drives the point home. Look, you're probably familiar with the HSK, maybe even the TOCFL. Those tests cover reading, writing, listening, the whole shebang. But the PSC, it's a completely different animal. It is 100% oral, and it's all about phonetic standardization. It's mainly for native or near-native speakers who need to prove their speeches at a professional level based on that Beijing standard.
So who actually needs this thing? Well, for a lot of jobs in China, this isn't just a nice-to-have certificate on your wall. Nope. It is a straight-up mandatory requirement. We're talking about teachers, news broadcasters, actors, even civil servants. If your job involves speaking to the public, the PSC is the official yardstick of your ability.
And let me tell you, the standards are incredibly high. The test has 6 main levels. Just to be a Chinese language teacher, you usually need at least an 87, which is a level 2A. But get this. To be a national-level TV broadcaster, you need a 97 or higher. That's level 1A. It's basically phonetic perfection. Okay, so we get the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. The modern PSC is a 100-point computer-aided oral exam, and you really need to understand its structure to prepare the right way, because the way it's scored is incredibly systematic.
The whole exam is broken down into 4 parts, and you can see how it's designed to build in complexity. You start with the absolute fundamentals, like the individual muscle movements of speech, and you build all the way up to producing fluent, spontaneous sentences.
The first 2 sections are basically a deep dive into your phonetics. Every single initial, final, and tone is put under a microscope. Part 3 checks how well you can read with a natural flow and rhythm, using one of 50 official passages. And that final section, worth a whopping 40 points, is a 3-minute speech where it all has to come together. Pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and just sounding natural.
All right, so how in the world do you prepare for a test like this? Well, here's the secret. Getting a high score on the PSE isn't about memorizing more vocabulary. It's about physical training. It's about training your mouth, your tongue, and your ears. You should really think of it as articulatory gymnastics. This quote really hits the nail on the head. You are literally retraining your muscles to make sounds with absolute precision, and you're training your ears to catch even the tiniest little mistake. It's a physical skill just as much as it is a mental one. So how do you actually structure that training? Well, one of the most effective ways is to use what's called the 4 strands model. It's a framework that makes sure you're building all the skills you need in a balanced way every single week. And here's what that can actually look like. Let's say Mondays and Wednesdays are for those focused phonetic drills. You record yourself, listen back, find the mistakes, and correct them. Tuesdays and Thursdays are for input and shadowing. That means mimicking a perfect recording to nail the rhythm. Friday is for house cleaning, getting rid of any regional words. And then the weekend, that's for mock exams, practicing those 3-minute speeches over and over.
Now, because this is a computer-aided test, your tech setup is basically part of the exam. You have to stay a consistent distance from the mic, speak at a normal, steady volume, and you've got to avoid any extra noises because the system might actually count a sigh or a tap as a speech error. And this is a big one. Do not memorize your speeches. Seriously, the system and the human reviewers can usually tell, and it will absolutely cost you points.
Right. A study plan is great, but the best one isn't one size fits all. The most effective approach really depends on where you're starting from. Your personal profile changes everything.
Let's look at 2 common profiles. For a native speaker of a Chinese dialect, a lot of the work is about unlearning things, unlearning those ingrained muscle movements and regional habits.
But for an advanced international learner, the focus is totally different. It's about achieving perfect tone consistency, hunting down and eliminating that last little trace of a foreign accent, and really developing a truly native-like rhythm.
All right, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's boil it all down. What are the absolute most critical things you need to remember for PSC success?
Here are the 5 keys to a high score. 1. Consistency over intensity. Little bits of practice every day will always beat cramming. 2. Your technical setup is critical. Your score literally depends on how well that computer hears you. 3. Speak naturally. Use outlines, not memorize scripts. 4. Self-correction is your superpower. Hit that record button and listen to your own mistakes. It's the fastest way to improve. And finally, number 5, always remember the goal. This isn't just about being understood, it's about embodying the standard.
At the end of the day, the PSC is a challenge to master the physical act of speaking standard Mandarin. It's a pretty unique and demanding goal. So the real question is, are you ready to begin your articulatory gymnastics?